The female CEO fired a single dad over $9. Then he cancelled her $9 million contract on the spot. The entire corporate lobby fell silent. The moment the female CEO slammed a $9 receipt onto the marble counter and pointed toward the exit. Every employee froze as the exhausted single dad stood there holding a worn cardboard box with his family photo inside. No one knew that the man being humiliated over just $9 was the only person authorized to approve a $9 million contract waiting upstairs. Before this story unfolds, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to CEO Secret Stories for more emotional stories that remind us that compassion is always stronger than pride. Daniel Brooks had spent the last 6 years raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, completely alone, after losing his wife to a long illness. Every morning he prepared breakfast, packed school lunches, dropped Lily at school, and then rushed to work as a procurement consultant for several multinational companies. He never looked wealthy because every extra dollar went toward hospital bills, school fees, and giving his daughter the happiest childhood he could manage. His old shirts were neatly ironed, his shoes were polished despite their age, and he carried himself with quiet dignity. Few people realized that Daniel was one of the most respected independent contract advisors in the industry, trusted by corporations to approve or reject multi-million-dollar supplier agreements. That morning had already been difficult. Lily had forgotten her lunch money, forcing Daniel to stop at a nearby cafe before reaching the headquarters of Harrison Technologies, where he had been invited to finalize a $9 million partnership. While paying for coffee, the cashier accidentally undercharged him by $9. Daniel noticed the mistake only after arriving at the company. Instead of ignoring it, he immediately returned to the reception desk, explained the situation, and asked whether someone could reimburse the cafe through the company cafe account because the cashier worked inside the same building. Unfortunately, the request reached the ears of CEO Victoria Harrison at exactly the wrong moment. Victoria had spent weeks dealing with financial pressure and believed every employee should be accountable for every cent. Without asking questions, she assumed Daniel was trying to exploit company resources over a tiny amount. In front of executives, assistants, security guards, and visitors, she declared that anyone arguing over $9 had no place inside her company. She demanded that security escort him out immediately. Daniel never argued. He simply lowered his head, picked up the small box containing his notebook and Lily's framed photograph, and quietly walked toward the exit, while whispers filled the lobby. No one noticed the message arriving simultaneously in the executive conference room. The board members had already prepared the final documents for the company's most valuable contract of the year. The agreement required one final independent authorization from Daniel Brooks before the suppliers could legally proceed. Without his approval, the contract would become invalid. As Daniel reached the revolving doors, his phone vibrated. The board chairman apologized repeatedly after learning what had happened and informed him that the decision was entirely his. Daniel stood outside for a long moment, staring at the smiling picture of Lily tucked inside his box. His daughter always reminded him that respect mattered more than money. He thought about the humiliation he had just endured, not because of $9, but because someone had judged his character without knowing his story. Calmly, he opened his laptop, signed a cancellation notice and withdrew his authorization for the $9 million agreement. Within seconds, every executive upstairs received the devastating notification. The conference room erupted into panic as lawyers confirmed the contract could no longer proceed. Victoria rushed downstairs, but Daniel was already walking toward the parking lot. Only then did the chairman explain who he really was and why every major corporation trusted his judgment. Victoria realized she had not lost the contract because of $9. She had lost it because she failed to show basic respect to a man whose integrity had led him to return money that wasn't even his. Days later, Victoria visited Daniel's modest home without cameras, assistants, or reporters. She apologized sincerely after meeting Lily, who proudly spoke about how her father always taught her that honesty costs nothing but is worth everything. For the first time in years, Victoria understood that leadership was measured not by authority, but by humility. She offered Daniel another opportunity to work with the company, not because they needed his signature, but because they needed his example. Daniel accepted only after receiving assurance that every employee, regardless of position or income, would be treated with dignity. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. Share it with your friends and family. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe to CEO Secret Stories so we can continue sharing meaningful stories that inspire kindness around the world. Special request. Before you leave, comment with "Respect is worth more than money." We'd love to know how many people truly believe that one act of kindness can change a life forever. Sometimes the smallest amount of money reveals the greatest value of a person's character, and the greatest fortunes are often lost, not because of bad business decisions, but because respect was forgotten when it mattered most.